clearly that's the most unbiased form of reporting. It is true, however, that in their weekend comments, as you go from, from Evans and Novak to Pat Buchanan, you do find a certain tilt towards the right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's take another call. This is Glenn from Delaware.
Yeah, how you doing, Frank?
Hi.
About a month ago, I thought I heard in the news there was another bill up for debate in the state of Maryland dealing with the porn rock issue again, censorship of lyrics and music. Do you know anything about this?
Yes, Judith Toth reintroduced her legislation that was originally introduced in 1986, February. And what they sought to do was attach the words compact disc, phonograph record, magnetic tape to existing pictorial pornography laws. And the structure of the legislation was pretty unworkable, and it died in the Senate Judiciary Committee, but apparently she's reintroduced it.
I think we have a pretty good division between us there, Frank. I'll do the bias and you do the porn.
Okay, well, how much porn do you want me to do? Because they put a disclaimer on there already.
Right.
Okay, we have another call. This is Crash from Maryland.
Hello, Frank.
Really? Crash?
Frank.
Yeah, what?
Hey.
Hey, what?
First of all, I'd like to, thank you for the 88 tour and all you did and the efforts of voter registration and all that. And your songs on Broadway the Hard Way they have a sense of awareness. People are basically kept dumb in this country, and I'd like to ask you if you're going to, planning on another tour maybe in the next election year, 92. I heard that you had Spain might be putting up some money for your tour or something like that.
It's too early to comment on that, but I think that the very least that I could do is participate in some sort of voter registration drive for 92, and I wind up talking about that kind of stuff quite a bit. And I don't know whether you're aware, but Daniel assisted us when we were in Washington, D.C. on the 88 tour, because we were doing voter registration at the theater there. Have any comments about that, Dan? You want to sing a little piece of it?
Well, no. I really got to do my great Gershwin song that night, and I'm not going to inflict this on your audience right now, but only to say that I think that you are a great public-spirited citizen. I mean, I know a lot of people in your business who peddle their songs and peddle their music and never think of trying to combine it with something which reaches out to America and tries to improve the political picture in this country. And the reason I went up and did that and made a fool of myself was that I really am very much impressed with the way that you have grown, the way you have gone from being what I consider to be a Class A musician, and I know that not only from rock music but also from your general background in music, but that you're willing to say, look, I can make it music, now I owe something to this country, and I think you're paying your debt.
Well, I don't look at it as paying the debt. I think it's business as usual, and I think that everybody in every profession ought to have a little bit more regard for what needs to be done. What we were saying during the 88 tour was if you don't work at democracy, the democracy itself is not going to succeed. And everybody's got to care about it a little bit.
And since that time, you've gotten some really astounding kind of examples of what you were talking about. When you see what happens when people go from Lithuania to Nicaragua and turn out and vote, and the way they can change whole governments, change whole systems, and the enthusiasm with which they do that, I think Americans with their low turnouts could envy what's happening elsewhere around the world.
I think so too. Well, now we have to go to yet another commercial. Daniel Shore, and Daniel, there's another interesting call I'd like to take. This is Steve from Michigan.
Hello, Frank.
Hi, Steve.
My question is, on your albums you have a sticker that says, this album contains material which a truly free society would neither fear or suppress. I have two questions. Why do you think there's so much censorship in the media, and why are people afraid to hear the truth?
Well, I think I'm going to let Daniel answer that, because I think that he has been censored. Before he answers, I just want to say I think it is a crime that you are not on television giving your perspective after being in the news business for over 50 years and being there and seeing everything that's happened. I don't understand why you're not on TV. Now, give Steve his answer.
Well, no, but Steve's question went to you, and if you want to duck talking about why you put warning labels on your albums, that's your affair. But I thought it was a very nice segue to the general subject of censorship. I don't know why I'm not on television. Maybe I'm not beautiful. Maybe I'm not young. Maybe I'm not blonde. Maybe that's the reason for it. And maybe that's the answer to it. Television more and more is losing its sense of what substance is and what information is, and more is looking for some very nice face that they hope will raise ratings, which are sinking anyhow. As to censorship, I have the best of all worlds right now. I do most of my work for National Public Radio. No one has ever censored a word that I wanted to say. I mean, I'm edited. They say this doesn't make any sense grammatically sometimes, which I have to admit, or the sentence is too long, or the words are too long. But there are places in the world where you can find to say the things that you think ought to be said and the things that need to be said. And I don't have any censorship problems anymore.
Yeah, but I just think that the things that you say ought to be on television. And I'm not trying to duck the matter of labels on records. I'll address that momentarily. The reason that particular sticker was placed on the albums is a joke, because all record labeling is a joke. I mean, what in the world do we think we are protecting people from? There is no word that you can read or a sound that you can make with your mouth that is so powerful that is going to cause you to burn forever in the lake of fire. It's a fantasy. There's no scientific evidence to support that record lyrics are going to turn you into a social liability when you hear it. And so I decided to put together this preposterous label, this oversized preposterous label, which has appeared on 2 of the albums. We don't use it anymore, but right around 84 and 85, when this record labeling business was gathering steam, that was included in the albums. So let's go to another call. This is Cliff from Wisconsin. Hello, Cliff.
Hi, Frank. This is not Cliff. It's Chris again from last night.
Oh.
How's it going?
Hi. How'd you get in there?
I just managed. I don't know.
You're a
Here we go.
guy.
Here's the question.
Right.
Before, you've made statements on AIDS. I heard one on Howard Stern.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a statement that I've heard only you make before. And apparently, what you said is that it could have possibly been made as a germ warfare that's like maybe gone awry, or it was actually even designed to kill off certain segments of populations. Now, I don't know if you have any facts to back this statement up, but I'd like you to talk about why that hasn't been talked about in the media.
Well, there's a book that was published in 1984 called A Higher Form of Killing, and I think it's page 236. There is a section in there which was taken from the Congressional Record where a guy, let's see if I can get the dates right, I think it was in the late 70s, was appearing before a House Appropriation Committee trying to get funding to develop an organism which, and this quotes a Congressional Record, would be refractory to the human immunological system. And it just looks to me like somebody said, hey, here's a good way to kill certain people with this little mechanism, but the book doesn't say which senators were at the hearing. It doesn't say what company the man represented. I believe this information could be found in the Congressional Record. It's possible that some of these guys are still in office, and it might be interesting to follow up on it. So let's take another call. This is Charles from Mississippi.
Hello, Frank. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine.
It's good to see you. Listen, I have a question for you distinguished guest there. I would like to know who decides the priorities of the news in the late afternoon like ABC, CBS, and NBC, and why were we, just completely covered up with news on South Africa? It was just unbelievable, all the coverage and all the money spent. Thank you.
Well, the way those decisions are made, they're really an institutional system that makes those decisions. That's to say that you have an executive producer, editors, the anchor persons play a part, depending which network it is, a smaller or a larger part. The news is processed during the day. They sit around and have conferences. And what do you think is the lead? What is new? What didn't we have yesterday? How does it compare with other stories? And a decision is made. That's so much for process. As to South Africa, I don't know what makes you ask about too much news from South Africa. I think it was one of the world's overwhelming stories to take South Africa after all those years and to see this man who's been a symbol of the fight against apartheid after 27 years in prison come out and be cheered all over the country. I can only tell you as a journalist that is a tremendous story. I would not have done differently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we don't have time for another call, but can I get you to tell the short version of the story that you told me about George Bush and your award? Oh, you got 20 seconds. Can you do it?
In 20 seconds, I was wearing 2 foreign decorations at a white tie affair dinner, and George Bush came up to me and turned to his wife, Barbara, and said, "Why don't I have any of those?" And everybody was very embarrassed until finally I told him, "I think the Constitution says you can't." And indeed, the Constitution says that a federal officer can't accept emoluments and titles of nobility and so on from foreign governments. He then asked me to send the citation from the Constitution and wrote me a note thanking me for having eased his mind.
And thank you, Daniel, and thank you, George, and good night.